I'm Morgan. I'm Morgan Harper. I am from Columbus, Ohio. I was born here at the Ohio State University Hospital, given up for adoption. I lived in a foster home for the first 9 months of my life before I was adopted and raised on the east side by Valerie, a Columbus public school teacher, educator. And we had a lot of early family experiences that, were stressful and financially stressful, but it put me in a position to get financial aid to attend Columbus Academy in Gahanna and really change the course of my life. Entering an environment where you see what happens when you get the resources, when you have the parents who have the resources and the know-how to put you on a track to do whatever you want, and the game is really yours to lose instead of figuring out how to play it. It had a big impact on me at a very young age and really put me on this mission to do whatever I could to address what I thought was a fundamental inequality in Central Ohio, in our country, that this could be the case, that if you have parents with money, if you're in the right zip code or the right school district, which we know drives a lot here in Central Ohio especially, you will be okay, and otherwise, keep us posted, right? And that was not okay. And it wasn't okay to 10-year-old Morgan, and it's not okay to 36-year-old Morgan. But now, after experiences where I studied public policy, I worked at the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau, really trying to gather these experiences to do what I could to set this country and our community on the right track and an equal one where everybody has a fair shot. And most recently, I was doing community development. Working for an organization that invests in affordable housing, economic development. And it was really, over the course of my time there that I started to focus on what are we doing, right? I've been, I'm not very old, but, have had quite a few years in working in public policy and really reflecting on where are we at. We've trusted in these incremental policies and a government full of people that have been driven really by corporate interests, and where has it gotten us? It's gotten us away from knowing exactly what we need, which is the federal government investing in all of us and creating a country where we all have a fair shot, and we got to do something about it, right? And so, I didn't know what exactly I would do about it, and I had to go through my process of like, all right, I know what's needed. I think we all know what's needed, and what are we going to do about it? So, I started thinking and talking to people and looking at the representation that we have here in Central Ohio, and just feeling like we could do more, right? We know the normal people, working people here in Central Ohio know what's right, know what's fair, and that we all together can create a progressive agenda that will support us to be okay. And so, I talked to a couple of people about my idea, and they told me pretty much, you're crazy. Not only are you crazy, but please stop talking to me about this, because I don't want to be also labeled as crazy or, whatever. But I just couldn't shake it, and we saw in 2018, and I was really inspired by 2018, seeing women of color that aren't necessarily coming from a ton of money, that don't have all the connections, that just took it upon themselves to do something about it. And I was like, wow, and actually Sam, my fiance, reminded me of this, that, I was sitting there, I was like, man, I'm just talking about it. I have all the resources at this point, the education in the world, and there are people that are actually doing something about it. And shame on me if I don't even try. So, we put together this plan, and like I said, you never know what's going to happen from this. You put yourself out there. I've never run for political office. I don't come from a political family, but I trusted in the people here in the 3rd District in Central Ohio that they would get behind this. And we also, had a lot of faith in the great grassroots groundwork that has already been laid by lots of people in this room and lots of the organizations that many of you are a part of. And we can do this. We can do this together. We can do this without the corporate money. We can do this with just normal people putting their skills and resources and time and energy behind this. And we will show people what it looks like when we have a government that is by the people, for the people, and organized free of corporate money. And we are doing it, right? Look around you. And so, the opportunity today, we're starting today with our new HQ, but a lot of you have already been involved over the past 2 months. And like I said, it's just been really, really touching to meet a lot of you and other people who believe in making a government and being part of a government that works for people and puts people first. And we're going. I mean, it is happening, right? And so we have had nothing but momentum from day one. And again, a lot of that is due to people like you who are taking it upon yourselves to spread the word, to get engaged, to volunteer and writing op-eds and all of the things that it's going to take to show people what's possible when normal working people get together and make things happen. So this is the launch. This is the launch of our HQ. This is a really major milestone for us because this is the beginning of, to me, like Sage was saying, like we have our spot now, right? So like whatever your skill is, whatever time you have, you know where we'll be. We will be here, and poor Sage will be here every single moment. And so you come in when you're available, when you have the time. No amount of money is too little, no amount of time is too little. Whatever you have to contribute to this campaign and this movement is valuable, it matters, and we will find a way to put you to work. So I am, again, so grateful for everyone coming out, and I just look forward to working with all of you. And you know, again, you know, another thing that I think is really exciting about this district in particular is the diversity of people, right? I mean, we know that this is a great community full of good people. We have a lot of different new American populations that are in the district, and so I want to make sure that this is also a chance to like bring it all together. We have more in common than separates us, and we need to have leaders that are also using these positions as an opportunity to bring us together, to continue to reinforce the communities that we're all part of and will make us stronger. And you know, and finally, I would just say, as we go out today and begin or continue really engaging in the communities that we've been reaching out to and letting them know about the campaign, for me, where I'm coming from with this is truly a sense of urgency. I mean, I think we're at a very critical point in our country where it's like, it's make or break, you know? I mean, we have an economy that people will tell you is booming, and you know, and I put myself in the category, right? Like, I'm okay, but there are a lot of people here in the 3rd district that are not. And so at top of mind when we go out there and we're engaging with folks is, you know, thinking of that urgency, of, you know, people and people in this room that are working a couple of jobs to get by, people that cannot access affordable housing no matter how hard they work, based on the prices of living in Columbus, Ohio, in other communities and cities that are in the 3rd district. And that is the urgency that we need to take into every one of these conversations, and it's the urgency that drove me to drop everything and do whatever I could to run for Congress and make our government work for us. So I, again, very, very honored to have you all here, so excited to build together, and look forward to continuing to meet and talk with all of you. So thanks so much for coming.
Just want to give everybody a heads up. If you are going to the Canvas or to the African Festival, you get a t-shirt. So, a lot of buzz about that.
The primary is March 17th, 2020. So we do want that to be on everybody's radar. So, you know, and I got
206 days.
Thank you. 206 days. Mark the calendar. Yes. No, and I do want that to be on everybody's radar. So thank you for the question, Bill, because, you know, that was another... Through this process, you get a lot of naysayers, right? And I think I was telling a couple of people, I have my mansplainer tracker as part of the campaign. I think particularly as a woman and a woman of color, you hear a lot of people that feel like, let me make sure you understand what you're doing. Let me make sure you know. I was like, okay, I'm gonna start keeping track of this, and I'll put it in something. I don't know what I'm doing. No, but really, like one of the feedback, I was like, whoa, you can't do a congressional campaign in I don't know how many months it was, 8, 7 months, whatever. It's a fairly compressed timeline, but you know, we talk to people, we can do whatever we put our minds to doing, and we will together do this. So I actually like that. I like that it's a little bit of a more compressed timeline because momentum, right? We launched on July 1st, we are building, we now have our campaign headquarters, and it's just like, let's give it our all for the next, I don't know what month, well, okay, we know what day tracker we're on.
6 days.
Thank you, Bill. Thank you. See, this is why I need you every step of the way, Bill. Okay, that day count. I need that day count. No, so yeah, and let's just do it. Let's knock it out, right? I mean, I no longer, this is my job. This is all that I'm doing. For those of you who have a lot of free time, I think I met Alex somewhere in the crowd here who, there we go, Alex, lots of free. Whenever I meet someone that's like, well, you know, I'm just kind of like exploring my options, I'm like, bing. Yeah. No, really, like we can do this, and we will do this, and all it's going to take is all of us coming together and putting the work in. So, yeah, I'm excited. I'm excited about that. And anybody that's like, oh, you know, you can't pull this off, let's just go. Let's go and let's show them what we can do. Any other questions? Any? Oh, okay, yeah, Reddit. Ask me anything. AMA. that was my first time on Reddit, I'll be honest.
How does Mom feel? Is she excited?
Yes, but Mom doesn't get to talk publicly. You can see her visual. Thank you. Yeah. We're working towards that.
When are you going to come out and visit us on the hilltop?
I was on the hilltop visit. Oh, really? Dairy Twist?
Yes.
I'm deep on Dairy Twist. I love Dairy Twist. Okay, well, I'm excited to continue to go to the hilltop. So, actually, I spent a lot of time out there because my mom worked at West High. I think 2 rotations at West High School. And so, yeah, no, I would love to.
We need you on the hilltop.
Okay, so what are we doing on the hilltop? Can we organize a meet and greet? Or what?
Let's talk to Lisa about it.
Okay, let's do it. Yeah. No, Dairy Twist. I had the mint chocolate chip.
Yeah.
And then also was talking to a couple guys who were working out there. And this is what's really interesting to me too. Again, the naysayers like, how are you going to do grassroots campaign? All this. It's like, regular people get it, right? Like, we should be able to have our basic needs met in the United States of America. Housing, generally making enough money, a clean environment, right? Normal people get that. Politicians who are driven by corporate interests, I don't know where they lost their way, but they've lost the way. And you talk to normal people like I was doing at Dairy Twist, and it's like, yeah, obviously that should be the case. Keep me posted on the campaign. I'll do whatever I can to help, right? So this is not rocket science. We know what we need. We just need people who are ready to fight for it.
Right.
Yeah, and this is another, I think your question touches on another interesting theme that I'm finding in conversations with people so far is because we've had a generation of being told that federal government helping us is bad, then we also have a generation of people that don't understand what the federal government could be doing to help us. So, a lot of these issues, we kind of think of them as local issues with policing, even with housing, all of that. No, that's not necessarily the case. That's what we've been trained to believe. And we can have the federal government invest in these things, pass legislation that imposes, higher standards on local municipalities, tie it to federal funding. All of this is possible. Local government has its role, and in a lot of ways, in some ways is doing okay job. I don't know if policing is the area where I would ascribe that to, but there is a role for the federal government to be imposing higher standards across the country. And really, we need representatives that understand that role and to also educate ourselves about that role so that people will elect representatives that we're going to fight for that type of legislation. So, particularly on the policing issue, and I, kind of like laid out the beginning, we're going to be rolling out part of that onto our platform, but imposing national accountability standards that you have to have a civilian board that's part of reviewing any police misconduct, that we ban the use of violent force and excessive force in policing. These are all things that we should be talking about at the federal level. Some of the presidential candidates are beginning to talk about, but surely in the 3rd district where we are seeing a lot of issues locally around police brutality, we need to be one of the voices that is contributing to that national conversation and setting the stage for passing federal legislation that will do something about these issues. So. Any other questions? Okay, cool. Hi.
So if you
And maybe also introduce yourself so we kind of get to know each other too.
Yeah. So my name's Catherine.
Yeah. Catherine.
Yes.
Hi.
So if you had to pick a current healthcare plan that's been introduced by the Democrats,
Yeah.
which one would you go with?
So I have on the platform Medicare for All, so single payer. I'm supportive of single payer. I think once you try to get away from that, it weakens the plan. It's not possible. Like, you kind of just have to go like all the way in. And so that's why I included that on the platform, because again, I see that as healthcare is a right. Everyone should have access to it, and this is one of the basic needs that has to be covered for every single person that lives, works, breathes in the 3rd district, and ideally, and why it needs to be federal legislation across the country. So, you see a lot of people that are like, oh, but is that consistent with capitalism? Healthcare is a right. Everybody needs to be in the system for it to work, single payer. Yeah. Any other questions?
Hi, I'm Gretchen.
Hi, Gretchen.
What are your thoughts about
Julie Vor's friend. Julie Vore and I worked together earlier. So
I'd like to be invited, thank you.
Yeah.
So what are your thoughts about student loan debt?
Yeah, so I think we have a generation that is trapped by debt. So I took on a lot of debt, though not as much as some people might have for law school. And I've talked about it a little bit, right? Like graduation day, you're like excited. Specifically when you finish law school, you're very excited because you have been in like not a fun experience for 3 years. But no, I mean, I remember it's like, wow, I'm excited, but I also know I'm facing this like big burden of immediately starting to make payments on this debt that is gonna like drive my financial decisions for some period of time, right? Crazy. And the fact that we have a lot of predatory, quote-unquote educational institutions, but no, for-profit institutions that do people into thinking certain degrees are going to set them on the course to make X amount of money and family-sustaining wages. It's fraudulent. It's not true. Bad people have been sold a bad bill of goods, and so we need to free this generation, cancel student debt, to allow people to make decisions that are not based on monthly payments for debt, like I said, sometimes from predatory educational institutions that actually can invest in, I don't know, like living life, right? Like having children, buying homes. No, we need to cancel the debt. And if we do, I mean, a lot of this stuff, I think this is also interesting, and we're all fairly like-minded here. I do. Actually, I don't know that. I don't know. Somebody who's like a Republican in the audience wants to ask me a question, please do. But no, I mean, I think it's just this is what is right. This is what is fair. This stuff is not complicated. We just need leaders that are willing to fight for it and not be afraid and not compromise against ourselves at the expense of normal people. So, yeah.
Hi, my name is Ison.
I recognize you.
Hi.
From Twitter.
Yeah. I know that you were interviewed by the Young Turks, and TYT has a progressive economic pledge. And I was wondering if you have looked into it and have signed the pledge.
I haven't looked into it in detail, and so I haven't signed the pledge,
Okay.
but I will look into it. Yeah.
Okay, great. And anyone who wants to, please look into it and sign the pledge. It's really, the pledge is 5 economic pillars. It's higher wages, Medicare for all, Green New Deal, college for all, and ending the corruption in Washington. So
Sounds about right. Any other questions?
Be on campaign finance and campaign finance reform.
In a great amount of detail, though I will say things are out of whack in terms of how easy it is for corporations to contribute large amounts of money. So, especially in launching this, we're doing a grassroots campaign. That was a fundamental thing, very important for me, no corporate PAC money, because I want to be free to make decisions based on what's right for people, not being influenced by corporations. And, and I think it is a very slippery slope. Even when you think, oh, well, no, it's just, they're just my friend and they work at this company and I'll take PAC money and it's all good. It's like, no, I mean, this stuff, even subconsciously, we know how this works, conflict of interest, particularly as a lawyer, know how conflict of interest works. We have very strict rules around that in things like the practice of law, for example. How we wouldn't apply those same things to our political leaders doesn't make a lot of sense to me, and we really need to do something about it, because it's hard like doing a campaign like this, raising money, trying to get like regular people to contribute to it. It's hard, but for me it's the only way I would even feel comfortable doing something political, because I want to be free. You have to be free in order to make the right decisions, and you can't be beholden to corporate interests. So, we need to do something about that. The super PACs, a lot of money that doesn't have a lot of accountability, that is able to drown out the voices of normal people. We have to do something about this. So, definitely a big priority. Just haven't fleshed out exact policy positions yet, but yeah.
Hi, also Morgan.
Oh, very nice.
Very accustomed to the debate about whether the Democrats should be more progressive or more centrist.
Right.
I wondered, especially with those states in mind, what your take on that debate is.
Yeah, it's interesting, and that's another common question that I've gotten is like, well, is this a good use of resources when we should just be going after Republicans and Donald Trump and this and that? And it's like, Yes, it is a good use of resources, but I think we need to be honest. One, I'm not focused day to day on Donald Trump, right? I mean, I'm focused, and why I'm in this is advancing policies that are going to help working people. I think working people might categorize themselves right now, especially, in the 3rd District, in all sorts of political labels, Republican, Democrat, whatever. I think these are often labels that are used to divide us and keep us distracted from the real issues that are going and policies that will help us, because as long as we're continuing to obsess over who's a Republican, who's a Democrat, it's tough to build coalitions to actually influence the political process, right? So I think we need to be honest about, even within the Democratic Party, how much we have strayed from keeping the focus first and foremost on regular working people. And it's through races like this that we are able to set a new agenda that is very issue driven, and those issues, again, people meeting their basic needs, healthcare, the environment, housing, making enough money. And so, if I thought that there was if I thought those views were being represented, then I would not think this was a good use of resources. But I do think that we need leadership that is talking about these things more strongly and building coalitions at the national level to advance the policies that are going to help people. And so, yeah, we've got to do it. But the label thing, I really think it's a distraction in a way. First and foremost, we need to just have people that are free of corporate money and focused on advancing policies that are going to help all of us meet our basic needs.
Yeah.
Could you talk about your stance on America's wars and our use of military force versus diplomacy?
Yeah, I think we spend way too much money on war. I also think that we enter a lot of wars that we have no business entering. I think we saw the example of the Iraq War, that was a huge expense of money, lives, resources, and it was on false information. And so we really need to be thinking about how we make decisions militarily, but also being real about when it's a good use of our people to enter into these situations, instead of, or it shouldn't, and it very much shouldn't come at the expense of also investing in people here and making sure that people have opportunities to work here and meet their basic needs and have high-paying jobs here. So I think we spend an inordinate amount of money and resources on some of these war efforts that aren't always based on good information, and we should consider diplomacy first as well. So. Yeah. Yes.
Hi, I'm Sean. So my question is, AOC and Ed Markey introduced the Green New Deal resolution a few months ago, and since then Bernie Sanders has recently introduced a much more in-depth Green New Deal bill for the Senate.
Yeah.
My question for you is there anything specific that you would add into a Green New Deal bill to go into the House?
I have to be honest with you, I don't know exactly. So I saw that Bernie's came out this week. I haven't had a chance to really dig into it. So I'll have to get back to you on that. But yeah, sorry. I know, I was like, I need to, it's just hard to get enough time to look at everything. So that's on the list of things I want to look into, so I can't answer specifically right now. But.
In general, why do you support something like the Green New Deal, whether it's congressional or Senate?
Yeah, so Green New Deal generally, I would say I support because, again, it's kind of common sense to me, right? I mean, climate change is happening. We are having increasingly a lot of negative outcomes from climate change. And so, but we could do something about it, right? And we could do something about it by investing in the clean energy sectors that will also create high-paying jobs for people to sustain themselves, families, and we've got to get to work on that. And so I like that the Green New Deal includes things like a job guarantee that will employ people in these industries, invest in our infrastructure, increase public transportation. So we'll be mitigating climate change and doing something about it quickly, because we need to go now if we're going to have any hope of doing that, while also investing in our people and in our communities.
Hi, Morgan.
Hi.
On your website, you have racial justice
Yeah.
and systemic reparations listed.
Yeah.
Can you expand on that?
Yeah, so I included reparations on the platform because based on, I think it's indisputable, in any understanding of history, in this country, for Black people living in this country, starting with slavery, but by no means ending there, and going well into the 21st and current times. We are seeing the systemic denial of wealth accumulation for Black people, and we see it in the differences in white levels of wealth at over $100,000, and for Black families it's at $9,000. So, this has been through policies around housing like redlining that prevented Black people from buying homes in certain neighborhoods. It's around like not getting access to GI Bill resources, all of that. It's been over the course of our country's history. So I included that because my platform is about being real, and that is very much a real part of our history. We no longer need to study it. We know it. If you needed a refresher, New York Times released something this week, 1619, you can get a quick refresher, but we just need to get to work on what we're going to do to address this inequality that has been a fundamental part of our country and start to allow the Black community to accumulate wealth and address this wealth gap. I called it systemic reparations because I do think often with reparations, people get into the very narrow thinking of like, it's just slavery. Okay, but I didn't own slaves, but I came here then, why do I have to? This is not about pointing fingers, it's not about going by person, it's about as a country, as a community, being honest with ourselves about what we have, what has occurred, and trying to remedy that inequality. And so systemic because I want to keep people from that framing of just thinking about slavery, but then also like that broadens us to think about the possibility of what types of policies would redress that inequality. And so, direct cash payments is something that often comes up, but I think we could think bigger than that, and we should think bigger than that around some of the things around property ownership. Should we be supporting Black families to purchase homes? How are we giving supports to people who have lived in redlining areas that are now experiencing gentrification, something we're seeing here in the 3rd District, to make sure that they are able to withstand the rise in property values and the accompanying rise in property taxes, so that they are able to capture some of the wealth that is accumulating now based on the changing demographics of communities and people having more of an interest in living in urban communities. So that's where I'm coming from. It's one, being real about our history, and history is not too far off, and two, trying to push people to think beyond just the typical dialogue around reparations, that this is a countrywide, this is a community-wide issue that we all need to address together if we have any hope of building communities that are inclusive and equitable moving forward. Any other questions? I should mention Bush is a Berwick resident, so I gotta shout out Berwick when I can. Yeah.
Given this recent local activity and across the nation, the alt-right and fascist domestic terror attacks, what can we do locally and nationally to combat the hatred?
Yeah, I mean, it is very scary times right now, and unfortunately the person that is in theory in charge of this country does nothing but perpetuate it. But I think we start grassroots, right? And that's where, with the campaign, and it kind of connects to the labels question. I'm coming at this campaign, and I think all of us should embody the spirit as we continue to engage people to become part of the campaign with a very open mind in a way. That I want to talk to everyone, and I do think as we unite around the issues that will serve all of us, we can build coalitions and build community. But we need to call out racism when it's happening. We need to call out hatred when it's happening, and to have an absolutely, there's no room for that here. There's no room for that in the 3rd District. There should be no room for that in our country. This is a country that was built by people who have immigrated here. It was a country that was built by all of us coming together to do things, and we cannot allow people to set us on a course of dividing and hatred, and it's not okay. But I think through exercises like this and setting out what our values are, that there is a place for all of us here, that we will not allow this to be the discourse of our country. We can do something about it. But we also need to build with the eye towards political power to take back control of our institutions and have them occupied by people who are coming and leading with those values first. So we have a lot of work to do. Right now is a very critical time, and that's all the more reason why I felt like it was necessary to take a step like this, build a campaign like this, because people that have these positions now aren't necessarily moving with that urgency to be clear about what our values are and to find what our country is going to look like for the next generation, what we'll allow, what we'll tolerate, and what we have absolutely no room for. Oh, another mansplainer tracker. Morgan, why didn't you use a picture where you smile? So, I do smile, but there's a lot going on that isn't worthy of smiles. So. Any other questions?
My name's Christine. You have a lot of items on your agenda to go over, but what are you most energized about this change?
Yeah. Another question, yeah, it's like, oh wow, Morgan, this is everything, you know? It's like, yeah, it's everything because everything is is a little bit in the balance right now, right? And what do you need to be okay? Like I said, we know it. We know the environment. We know people need housing. We know people need to be making enough money. So I will say, you know, what I like about the Green New Deal is that it's cognizant of the fact that we need all of these things. And it's sort of like a plan that connects a lot of them, right? So making sure that people have high-paying jobs, addressing the climate, which is one of the most dire issues right now facing us, and then, you know, I'll say, I guess I'm not technically answering your question because I do feel passionately about all of them, but you know, the housing, I most recently was working at a community development organization. I think it was there realizing that, you know, we are increasingly seeing people that aren't able to meet that very, very fundamental need of housing stability. And, you know, that's something that, you know, I've had some experience with in seeing a parent that didn't have that housing stability and the effect that that can have on children. And so for me, that is a very big issue. And that's one, like, if you can't go home at night and go to a place where you're able to breathe, study, you know, relax, whatever, you're not going to be okay. If you're, you know, living in an area and you have drug problems, you're trying to rehabilitate from drug problems, and you can't go home somewhere, you're not going to be able to get over those drug issues. So, you know, housing is one that I was increasingly focused on in my professional career before doing this, and I do think it's one of the core building blocks of any successful life. So. Mark. Hey, Mark.
Hey, Morgan.
Mark and I met by phone, was that yesterday?
The other day.
2 days ago? I don't know, time is...
Given that Joyce Beatty has won this congressional district basically without a primary challenger for the last, I don't know, since 2010, how are you going to split your campaign up to tackle the actual district itself as far as going out canvassing? Because she has basically got away with about 20,000 votes, and we know that the 3rd district has 700,000 people in it. So,
right, which is an amazing opportunity in a way, right? So voter turnout has not been strong, and there's a lot of interesting and very diverse communities within the 3rd district. So this is where I really look to all of you. We want to have people in every community that makes up the 3rd district kind of being like our evangelists, so to speak, for the district, that are really helping us organize people, host meet and greets, be on the hilltop, just get the word out about the campaign. Because I think one of the primary advantages that any incumbent has is name recognition. Once you're in office, it's easy for people to already know about you and to continue to know about you, and to try to infiltrate that through like bringing out a new name and getting that kind of attention is quite challenging. So we're counting on a grassroots approach, right? And community-based, plugging into existing community building and grassroots organizing that has already been happening in a lot of these communities in the 3rd district. I think we will be able to overcome that and get the word out about our campaign and turn out new voters, right? I mean, not only is overall voter turnout low, but voter turnout for young people is quite low. That presents a real opportunity. But I think even across the ages, I think, and I'm hearing this in a lot of people I'm talking to, that people are kind of fed up, right? I mean, they're fed up with leadership that they don't see, that they don't feel is really fighting for them with any urgency, that they don't feel is connected to the community. And so I think people are ready for fresh leadership and thinking about how are we going to lead and structure our country for the next generation, and what type of leaders and what type of movements are going to get us there. And I think we all probably in this room know it's a movement of people, it's a people-based movement, and it's leaders that are putting people first. And so this is an exercise in starting to get that to the streets for people in Columbus, in the 3rd district, and understanding that we can be a leader in that movement, right, in the 3rd district through this congressional campaign. So I'm very optimistic about that. That's another one where it's like a lot of questions, like, whoa, but how are you going to get the word out? It's like people. People know how to get the word out. We all have our communities that we're a part of. It's going to take all of us taking on that responsibility, though, of helping to organize and put it up on ourselves to make sure that nobody that lives in the 3rd district has at the very least not heard the name Morgan Harper, but again, not for me. That's enough. Oh, Morgan, you're trying to just like build name recognition. It's like, have you heard of YouTube? I could start a YouTube channel if all I cared about was building name recognition. No, we're trying to organize people to influence policy and build for the future. And so we can all do that together, but it's going to take all of us making sure that every single person hears about this campaign until March 17th, 2020, 206 days from now. No, Friday, I don't know if he's still here. Yeah, we've got 206 days to make sure that everybody who lives in the 3rd District hears about this campaign and is left to make their own decisions. And they vote how they may, but at least they've heard about the issues that we're trying to promote that will help working people living here.
Hi Morgan, I have a question from Facebook from Mike Alcock. He says, hi Morgan.
Mike Alcock. Parsons Library.
And how does pre-K to 12 public education fit into your platform?
Pre-K to 12 public education fit into the platform. So we don't have a specific issue on that on the platform right now. I mean, I would say that we have issues around how we're funding public education and how property taxes drive a lot of the outcomes that we're seeing in different school districts. That needs to be addressed. We have found that it's already been found that it's unconstitutional, but now we just need to do something about it. And so I'm very supportive of those efforts that are going to try to create more equitable educational opportunities. Because you know what's interesting is I think we've seen too, people thought, oh, well, once I get to a suburban district, I'll be okay, right? And that has all been driven by the funding of public education and really driving people's living decisions, which is kind of crazy. But those same problems that people were fleeing are starting to now replicate in suburban districts. Fleeing will not save us. We actually have to just address the issues and figure out how we're going to structure our society to work for everyone. And I think there are things that we can do at the federal level to help with that. But there is also a lot that has to happen at the local and state level to get that done. So, thanks. Thank you, Mike Alcock. And the other thing I would just say there, because we have on the platform around early childhood education. I think this is very interesting that we have a whole system for K through 12, and I think a lot of people probably, or I know a lot of people in this room are familiar with what happens before that, the race to kindergarten, right? And like, how am I going to access affordable childcare until I can just like throw my children into public schools? I know my brother is just counting down the day. To free yourself from the cost of childcare. Crazy that we would leave this kind of thing to chance, put the burden always on parents who are already busy working to try to access early childhood care. That needs to be thought of as also as a universal service that we provide, that we all have access to, so that we level the playing field and every child has access to high quality early child care that then prepares them for positive and better K through 12 environments. I love how interactive it is. This is cool. Okay. Chad? Yes.
Chad Harper.
Full disclosure.
When will we be able to get yard signs?
I can't believe that my own brother brought up the yard signs. Wow.
Someone had to do it.
Betrayal.
I know.
I turn that question to...
We'll get them done. You guys want them?
Yeah.
Okay. All right, we're working on that. We're going to stay tuned. We're also working on some sort of online store. I don't know the latest on that, but I think it's coming.
Yes, T-shirts and bumper stickers and yard signs and all that will be available online as well, and then down here. So we'll make sure everybody knows when all of that stuff is ready.
Yeah.
Thank you for signing in.
Thank you for your question.
Glad I can help.
Hi, Ethan. What do you think is the responsibility of the congressperson to work with like state and local government? Do you think it's just showing up for a photo op, or like what do you think is their responsibility?
Well, I mean, I think the real opportunity is that these are all, as many might know, different levels of government, and I think they all have an opportunity to have independent voices about what's going on, and that really needs to be how we're approaching these positions. So, I mean, I think that it's important for a congressional representative when I am in this seat to speak to the agenda that we are running on and be consistent with those issues, and it does help to set a standard for what we all should be shooting for at every level of government, but we have to recognize that each of these levels should have their own independent views and and have those views represent the interests of the people in the 3rd district. So, you know, of course, there's no direct control or anything, but I do think that is what's interesting about having, you know, congressional seat, is that you are free, a little bit free of the local, you know, the local politics, but like I said, there's a lot that federal policy and federal legislation can do to impact what's happening at the local level, but we need to have representation that recognizes that and is also fighting for an independent agenda, and that's what I will be doing, staying very consistent to this agenda that I know will serve the residents, people living in the 3rd district. Hi.
Hi.
Go ahead.
My name's Abby.
Abby, yes.
I've been trying to formulate this question in my mind, and I don't want it to come off as mean or anything like that, but I think a lot of the people I talk with, we struggle with feeling like one politician can represent the entire community accurately, and I truly don't believe that anyone can be an expert on everything. I think you really encompass a lot of what I care about and a lot of what I find important right now in our country, but I'm wondering who you surround yourself with and who you look towards for maybe areas where you're not an expert, and who you surround yourself in this campaign a little bit.
So some interviews I do feel like I'm suddenly being grilled like I'm running for president. It's like, no, I'm just running to represent the 3rd district. No, it's impossible. Nobody can be expert in everything. And so I'm really depending on, you know, as people reach out to me, you know, through the campaign, and they have various areas of expertise, incorporating them, meeting with them regularly, getting guidance on things like Green New Deal. So, you know, there's a professor that's reached out to me that is offering a lot of support on that area specifically. People that have more familiarity with policing issues that are willing to provide context that's important in thinking about how to incorporate that into the platform. And then, you know, I also do have a lot of friends that work in different areas of policy, and I'm able to reach out to them. Early child care is one area I have no personal professional background in, but you know, so those types of relationships I'm able to lean on, and they're the same relationships I would lean on when governing, right? Because yeah, even if you are an expert, you constantly need to be refining your thinking. So lots of, even within like consumer protection, I worked at the CFPB. There's a lot that's encompassed in consumer financial products, and everybody has a deeper knowledge than you might be able to have, you know, doing an overview. But I think too, we need to balance the expert points of view with the experiences of real people around some of these issues, and so I would say, you know, I want to prioritize those equally almost, if, at the very least, and continue to talk to people in the district that are having experiences around all of the things that we're talking about in healthcare, you know, childcare, the environment, policing, all of this, because we know more than we think we do sometimes, and I do think it's important for our policies to be driven by the experiences that people are having on the ground. Yeah, I think that's actually underestimated quite a bit, how sophisticated people's understanding is of, or can be of policy issues, because maybe it's not phrased in a policy way, but people know, we all know what's happening, right? We all know what we're experiencing, and we all know generally what would make it better. We might not know how to like write the legislation to support that, but that's where, you know, you want to bring in experts in. But fundamentally, I think we need to have policy that's driven by the experiences that regular people are having on the ground. We could go on and on. This is fun. Okay, all right. But we probably shouldn't, because we're supposed to be going out. Okay.
I'm Sean.
Yes. Nice T-shirt. I like the T-shirt.
Yeah. I've heard a lot of great ideas, a lot of great positions from you, great questions from everyone. So I know in the 2016 and the 2018 elections, there were a lot of issues with people either not being able to vote, like to actually get to the polls because of some weird issues, like closing polling stations, that kind of stuff. So I guess in order for us to still like have representation and make sure that we can get our voices heard, you know, what kind of things can we do or you do in office to try and combat some of those things? Because it's really a shame when you see like in Arizona, like hundreds of thousands of people being denied their vote. You know?
Right. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I think we should just have automatic voter registration. This is a common theme, I would say, in our country, is that we like to create, or not we normal people, but some of us, and particularly those that have more power, like to create barriers to just accessing our rights. No, that's not okay. And so we don't need to have a lot of processes to just get to vote. It's like, you live here, so vote. You should be able to vote. So that should be automatic to eliminate some of these barriers. And I also think that it's important. There are some barriers that are difficult to overcome. I mean, we see that here in Franklin County. There's the ballot situation, all of that. And so it does require more work for us to get the word out there, but I'm optimistic that we can overcome that. I also think and am inspired and encouraging of a lot of the voter registration efforts that are happening to try to overcome some of those systemic attempts to suppress people's votes. But fundamentally, we need to have policies that eliminate barriers to people exercising their constitutional rights, and we stop wasting resources and time on things that create barriers to doing that. So, one more question. Sage has spoken. One more question.
I have a follow-up.
Well, yeah, so I generally think that we need to recognize everyone's human rights. We need to recognize that Palestinians have rights, Israelis have rights, and make sure that we are having policy that's driven by that. And so, that's a fundamental issue for me.
We've met with, as an organization with Joyce Beatty probably every year or twice since, and she's never once responded to any of our letters that we bring in. And I'm just wondering if you're prepared for the pushback from AIPAC for your candidacy.
I've been getting pushback since day one, so I'm prepared for all sorts of pushback. We're getting, okay.
Yeah, so just if you want to stick around, do the canvassing and the African Fest, come see Ellie and Mari, get to know each other, collaborate, talk to one another, meet somebody new, introduce yourself, and don't forget to sign the logo on the back wall. We have white paint pens, so thank you all so much for coming. Give yourself a round of applause.